Hello, everybody. Welcome back to On the Fringe. This is Dave. I'm here with Gavin,
Yo,
and we have a very quick episode today. Just going to go lightning fast through something that's going on in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is really no longer in the 24-hour news cycles, but Afghanistan is still there. The country still has a lot of problems, and
cool.
I think the Taliban is very responsible for a lot of these. And we're going to be talking today very briefly about the Chinese trying to invest into Afghanistan. And Gavin, how's that going for them?
Really, really badly. So after 2021, when the Taliban regained power in Afghanistan, the Chinese did not recognize them, but the PRC was very clear that they were not displeased about this because they were ready to start investing directly in the country, which was not something they'd been able to do under the previous regime. So they started a couple of schemes. The one we're going to be talking about today is a oil and gas. I think it was a refinery or was an extraction project that they developed, and they were sending in engineers. They were building facilities, and in the last couple of months, employees, Chinese employees of this enterprise were essentially detained. Their passports were confiscated, and it was put to representatives of the Chinese government that if they wanted these individuals to be returned to the People's Republic, certain concessions would have to be made. Essentially, the business would have to be turned over to the Afghan government. Um,
Yeah, talk about
and
being tied up at work.
oh, Dave, I mean, these guys were real tied up. There were people without heart medication. There were people basically undergoing a slow mental and physical collapse. These were people, essentially, it sounds like they were being held in solitary or semi-solitary confinement. I mean, they'd essentially been kidnapped. And the reason for this is basically the enterprise had started making money. And when it started making money, it was made very clear. I mean, this was a joint enterprise. It was made very clear to the Chinese representatives that they were no longer needed, despite the fact that, according to reports that had been made, there were massive safety issues, there were structural integrity issues, there were staffing issues where people were being put in place who were not qualified to run this thing. And that was basically dismissed, much as the Chinese company was dismissed. So
Hmm.
that enterprise is now at an end, and it seems like they are currently negotiating the release. There's still, I think, six or eight Chinese individuals from this company still left in Afghanistan, and the foreign ministry of the PRC is negotiating the release. But this is not great
And
news for anybody.
no, and you look at this, the Chinese were going to stay in there for 25 years. If I can remember,
Yeah,
I think it was 25 years. But
I think it
they
was.
were supposed to put $540 million into this deal
Hmm.
within 3 years. And the Chinese are dumping tons of money in because Afghanistan's critical to China's national security. They're very worried about Uyghur separatism in the western part of China and
Hmm.
Afghanistan, and having control over Afghanistan economically. Well, that could potentially simmer that down a little bit. And then also, Afghanistan potentially has over $1 trillion of rare earths. So you've got cobalt, lithium, and a lot of gold too, potentially that has not been extracted from the country. Who else is doing business in Afghanistan, Gavin? I mean, Gulf states, the
The
Martians,
Yeah,
Canadians,
Narnia,
anybody?
um,
Narnia.
Hogwarts, I think has some
Oh,
people out
okay.
there. I mean, they do not have a lot of economic partners. Let's just put it like that. There is definitely money coming from the Gulf states, but I would not say there's a lot of direct physical investment. They have been officially recognized by the Russian Federation, but the Russian Federation is kind of tied up with other things at the moment. They're not dumping money into Afghanistan. So the Chinese were really the majority of foreign direct investment. They were pretty much all of it, except for the cash that's coming from the Gulf, that's mostly from private actors. It's not coming from the states necessarily. There is no investment in infrastructure. There is very little maintenance of what infrastructure they still have. And there seems to be which is not surprising, there seems to be a lack of any kind of long-term economic planning in the country at all, where everything is based on how much money can we extract out of a business in short of a time as possible.
Usually
And
at a at the barrel of a gun, with the barrel of a
almost
gun.
invariably, almost invariably, this is bad from an economic standpoint because this is like the one kind of major energy infrastructure they had that's not a dam. But also from a foreign policy standpoint, as Dave just pointed out, China has been very much treating them with kid gloves because they are genuinely very worried about the presence of the East Turkestan Islamic movement in Afghanistan, where that organization has camps, that organization has personnel, that organization has weapons, and they were looking to the Taliban again to tamp them down, keep them in the camps, keep them away from the border. But this is not working. The strategy to keep things in check through economic engagement has not panned out. And again, it's just down to the short-termism of the Taliban. They are unable to see the forest for the trees.
Hmm. And in the Chinese too, the US left, they saw this is a potential power vacuum. This is a huge hole. Well, we're going to try and jump in there and fill this void. And yeah, they jumped in and they just got sucked into a black hole.
Black pit of
Obviously,
Kabul.
yes, the black pit of Kabul. And everybody else saw this is not a good, potential investment or a good idea to do business with these guys. And that's why nobody has. But
Hmm.
the Chinese are going for our national security. We have to do it. We have to give this a shot. And yeah, 540 million bucks, for us, it's not that much money. For the Taliban, it's a huge amount of money. And maybe we can get them to change for that much. And granted, I don't think they care. They're obviously not interested in having a lot of money or getting these resources out. They're interested in having power and having control over the country. And we did a pod earlier this year in season two.
Yeah.
The Taliban has bought security cameras from China. They've put them up all over Kabul, and they're obsessed with surveillance. They're obsessed with watching everybody and everything that's going on in the city. We've got a link to this episode below. They're also paranoid, and they're still so worried about keeping power and keeping power at the barrel of a gun that they're not going to, I think, even consider opening up the economy,
No.
if ever.
It's not, again, I think you have to remember that for the Taliban, they're under no obligation to deal honestly with people they view as infidels and heretics. It's just not, it's not incumbent on them. They're under no obligation to be a good faith actor in any situation they're involved in. And as you correctly pointed out, they're not really that concerned with money. That's not a driver. The driver is control, keeping it, maintaining it, and exercising it as much as possible. And that's, I think, where the split with the Chinese government has come, where at the end of the day, the Chinese are quite interested as a government and a state in making money. They're interested in an expanding economy. They're interested in economic growth. The Taliban does not care.
The Chinese also see prosperity as leverage for them to keep control and keep power. And the Taliban does not see that. They see
No,
our power is coming from our weapons.
our weapons and our will. On that note, yeah, please Please listen back to that earlier episode, and we will continue talking about, even if no one else is, continue talking about Afghanistan, which is an absolutely critically important country in the world today.
That it is. That it is.
So, on that note, please like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your hamster, share with your guinea pig, share with anybody around, anybody you think would be vaguely interested in the show. We appreciate our community. We just like to say, once again, from On the Fringe, thank you.
Yep. Take care.